There is something about being completely alone that changes the way you hear things. A house you have lived in for years suddenly starts making sounds you have never noticed. The creak at the top of the stairs. The low hum that comes from nowhere in particular. The way silence in an empty room has a texture to it, almost like pressure, like something is pressing against the air from the other side. Most of the time, it is nothing. Pipes, wind, your own imagination running the kind of software it was never meant to run at 2 in the morning. But sometimes, the people who submitted these stories wish it had been nothing. 3 accounts. 3 people who were completely alone at home. 3 things that happened that none of them have ever been able to explain. We start in a farmhouse in rural Ohio in the middle of November, during the worst thunderstorm that county had seen in 11 years. Her name is Rebecca. She was 24 years old and had been living alone in the farmhouse for about 8 months after her grandmother passed and left her the property. The house sat on 40 acres of flat, dark land, the kind of place where the nearest neighbor is a 10-minute drive, and the nearest streetlight is further than that.
Cassie.
She had been through plenty of storms in that house. She knew its sounds. She knew the way the old wooden beams in the ceiling groaned when wind came from the north. She knew the rattling of the single-pane windows in the upstairs bedroom. She was not a person who spooked easily. That night, she was sitting in the living room with a candle lit because the power had gone out around 8 o'clock. She had her phone, a blanket, and a glass of wine. She was not thinking about the basement. The farmhouse basement was accessed through a heavy wooden door just off the kitchen. It was the kind of old basement that had a dirt floor and stone walls and smelled like something damp and permanent. Rebecca used it for storage. Old furniture, canning jars from her grandmother's era, a chest freezer that still worked. She had no reason to go down there at night. The first knock came at 9:47. She knew the time because she had just checked her phone. 3 knocks, slow, deliberate, from somewhere below her. She told herself it was a branch against the exterior foundation wall. The storm was bad enough for that. She went back to her phone. The second set came 10 minutes later. 3 knocks, same rhythm, same deliberateness, the kind of spacing that does not happen by accident, the kind that communicates intention. Rebecca set down her glass and stood up. She walked to the kitchen and stood in front of the basement door and listened. Nothing. Just the rain against the window above the sink and the low roll of thunder moving east. She reached for the door handle and pulled. The door did not move. She pulled again, harder this time, the way you pull when something has swollen in the humidity. Still nothing. She looked down at the door handle and realized what she was seeing. The door was locked from the inside. The farmhouse basement door had a simple slide bolt on the basement side, the kind installed so that someone working down there could lock out any drafts or animals that might push the door open. Rebecca had never used it. She had not been in the basement in over a week. There was no reason for that bolt to be thrown. She stood in the kitchen of her grandmother's farmhouse with a dead phone signal and 40 acres of dark Ohio farmland around her, and listened to the storm and thought about whether there was a single explanation for what she was looking at that did not require something to be in her basement. She thought about it for a long time. Rebecca did not open that door that night. She dragged a kitchen chair against it, wedged it under the handle, and sat in the living room until dawn with a carving knife on the coffee table in front of her. In the morning, the storm was gone. The power was back. She called her cousin Marcus and asked him to come over without telling him why. When Marcus arrived and they stood together in front of the basement door, it opened easily. The slide bolt on the inside was in the unlocked position. The basement was empty. The dirt floor was undisturbed. The stone walls were exactly as they always were. The chest freezer was humming. The old furniture sat where it had always sat, except for one thing. Near the bottom of the stairs, pressed into the soft dirt floor, was a single footprint, bare, human-shaped, facing the stairs as though something had been standing there looking up. There was only one print, not two. One. As though whatever made it had only needed one step. Rebecca sold the farmhouse 14 months later. She has never been back. If Rebecca's story is the kind that makes you glance at the floor, the next one is the kind that makes you avoid mirrors. Daniel was 31 years old and working a remote contract job when a friend asked him to house sit for 2 weeks while the family went to a lake house for summer vacation. The house was a large 2-story in a quiet suburb of Minneapolis. 4 bedrooms, finished basement, a hallway on the 2nd floor that ran the length of the house with framed family photos on one side and a full-length mirror on the other. Daniel had stayed there before and knew the house well. He was comfortable there. He slept in the guest room, ate whatever was in the fridge, and mostly just kept to his laptop and the large sectional couch in the main living room. On the 5th night, he got up around 11 to get a glass of water from the kitchen. The upstairs hallway was lit by a single nightlight plugged into the wall at the far end, the kind that gives off a pale orange glow just strong enough to navigate by. He walked past the mirror, and then he stopped. He was not sure why he stopped. Something registered in his peripheral vision that his brain had flagged without immediately explaining. He turned back to the mirror and looked at it. The mirror showed him, standing in the hallway. That was accurate, but the reflection of the hallway behind him was wrong. In the actual hallway, the nightlight was at the far end, to his left. In the mirror, the light appeared to be on the right side. He turned around and looked at the hallway, and looked back at the mirror, and stood there trying to reconcile what he was seeing. He spent the next several minutes moving slowly back and forth in front of the mirror, watching his reflection, trying to identify what exactly was off. The geometry kept not matching. Not dramatically, not in a way that screamed at you, just subtly, quietly wrong in the way that only becomes more wrong the longer you stare at it. And then he noticed that his reflection's left hand was at its side. His left hand was holding a glass of water. Daniel stood completely still in the upstairs hallway of his friend's house and watched his reflection in the mirror, and his reflection did not move the way he moved. He raised his right hand. The reflection raised its left hand, which is what you expect from a mirror. He raised the glass of water in his left hand. The reflection did not raise anything. Its left hand stayed at its side. He walked away from the mirror fast. He went downstairs and sat on the couch with every light in the living room on, and did not go back upstairs until morning. In daylight, the mirror was a mirror. His reflection matched him exactly. He stood in front of it for 10 minutes. Everything was normal. The family had a security camera mounted in the upstairs hallway, aimed at the guest room door, a leftover from when they had a nanny and had since forgotten about. Daniel found the app on his phone and pulled the footage from the night before. The camera showed him walking down the hallway at 11:14. It showed him stopping in front of the mirror. It showed him standing there for several minutes. The camera also showed the mirror. And in the security camera footage, standing behind Daniel in the mirror's reflection, visible only in the glass, and not in the actual hallway behind him, was a shape. Dark. Tall. The kind of shape that the human eye reads instantly as a person, even when everything else in your brain is telling you that no person should be there. It was standing close, right behind his left shoulder. Daniel left the house the following morning and told his friend he had a family emergency. He has not spoken about the security footage to anyone except the person who submitted this story. He says he watches it sometimes, late at night, trying to find a rational explanation. He says he has not found one yet. We have saved the third story for last because it is the one that stays with people the longest. Not because of what happened, but because of why it happened, and what it might mean about the line between grief and something that refuses to stay on its side of that line. Her name is Cassie. She was 22 when this happened, a junior at a state university in Tennessee, living in a small off-campus apartment she shared with a roommate who had gone home for the long weekend. Cassie stayed behind to study for a midterm. Cassie's mother had passed away 2 years earlier from a very sudden illness. Cassie had been close to her in the specific way that only children are close to a single parent who raised them alone. She kept a photo of her mother on the desk in her bedroom. She still called her mother's old phone number sometimes, just to hear the voicemail. The apartment was a second-floor unit in an older building. 2 bedrooms, a shared bathroom at the end of a short hallway, a small living area, and kitchen. The kind of apartment that feels cozy when someone else is home, and just slightly too quiet when they are not. Cassie was at her desk studying when she heard it. Her name, called from the direction of the bathroom. Clear, close, unmistakable. She told herself she had imagined it. She went back to her textbook. She read the same paragraph 4 times. It came again. Her name, from the bathroom. In her own account, she said that the voice sounded exactly like her mother. Not vaguely like her. Not similar. Exactly. The specific pitch her mother used when she was looking for her around the house. The slightly rising inflection at the end, the way it carried. Cassie sat at her desk and did not move for a very long time. She was not a superstitious person. She had grown up in a practical household. Her mother had been a nurse who believed in things she could measure. Cassie was studying biology. She knew the ways that grief could distort perception. She knew the brain's tendency to hear loved ones' voices in ambient sound, in white noise, in the spaces between silence. There is actual research on this. It has a name. But this had been her name, spoken, twice. She got up and walked to the bathroom door and stood in front of it. The light under the door was off. She reached in and hit the switch and pushed the door open. The bathroom was empty. She was about to leave when she noticed the mirror above the sink. The apartment had poor ventilation in the bathroom, and the mirror would sometimes fog slightly, even without a shower running, just from the humidity of an old building. The mirror was lightly fogged, and in the fog, written in letters about 3 inches tall, running across the lower half of the glass, were 4 words. I am still here. Cassie took a photo on her phone. She called her roommate. She sat on the front steps of the building in the cold night air and waited for her roommate to answer. Her roommate drove back that same night. They went into the bathroom together and looked at the mirror, which had cleared by then. No writing, no fog, just a mirror. Cassie still has the photo. She showed it to her roommate. The writing is there in the image, clear and legible, in the slightly uneven block letters that she says she recognized immediately. They were her mother's handwriting. 3 stories. 3 people who were alone when they should have been alone. 3 things that happened in the ordinary spaces of ordinary homes, in the hours when the rest of the world was asleep, and there was nothing watching, and nothing listening, and nothing there at all. Rebecca checks her basement door every night before she goes to bed, even in her new apartment, even though there is no basement. Old habits from that November thunderstorm in rural Ohio that she has never quite been able to shake. Daniel does not house sit anymore. He also removed every full-length mirror from his own apartment. He says he just prefers it that way. Cassie finished her degree. She keeps the photo of her mother on the desk. She still calls the voicemail sometimes. But now, when she is alone in a quiet apartment and she hears her name called from somewhere she cannot place, she does not assume she imagined it. She says hello back. If you have been home alone and experienced something you have never been able to explain, drop it in the comments below. Whether it was a sound, a shadow, something in a mirror, or something that has no category, leave it there. The most unsettling accounts get their own video. You know where to find us.